today's verse, the story of Vibhisana performing the last rites to Ravana on Lord Ramchandra's instruction. In South India, a very common name for beautiful young girls who are intimately loved by their parents is Mandodari. But I believe it's very rare that any beautiful young boys loved by their parents are named Ravana. Why is this? They were husband and wife. You would think they would be given equal positions of appreciation. Because after all, Mandodari was completely chaste and faithful to Ravana. Yet she's considered one of the most magnificent examples of chastity by which girls follow in the footsteps of. And Ravana is just the opposite. Practically everything about him is what we're supposed to overcome and somehow or other transcend. Mandodari was the daughter of Mayadanava, who was also a very powerful personality, who was the architect and a great mystic who would help the asuras. And Ravana, so powerful, just to pacify him, Mayadanava gave his very beautiful daughter in marriage, Mandodari. She was always pious, always righteous, attached to Dharma, but yet faithfully served her husband. Mandodari was one of the people who was again and again pleading with Ravana, return Sita to Ram. I'll do anything for you. But this is not right. But he would not listen. And in the end, even though Ravana did defy Mandodari's wish, her appeals, and he died because of that, as a chaste wife, Mandodari was yearning from her heart in separation from Ravana. How does that fit in our logical, psychological framework? It seems quite inconceivable. And today's verse, Vibhisana, we find he was also instructing, pleading, arguing with Ravana, trying to convince his older brother to return Sita. But still, Vibhisana was faithful to his brother, stood at his side through all those years until finally his brother rejected him. And he was also weeping and crying upon Ravana's death. So these are great mysteries. The Vedas definitely are not about stereotyped personalities. The substance of these people is something very inconceivable to understand. But the study of it really awakens our bhakti and opens our minds to what is a Vaishnava. Vaishnavara kriya mudra vigyena bujai. It's very difficult to understand the mind of a Vaishnava. And Vibhisana is one such person. A little background. Pulastya Muni, who was born of Lord Brahma, one of the greatest of ancient sages. Performed great tapasya, had tremendous powers, was one of the leaders of society and dharma for all time. His son was Vishrava. Vishrava was also a very pious man. He was doing great tapasya. He was a Brahmin. Son of Pulastya Muni, grandson of Lord Brahma. Bhardraj Muni, another great sage, gave his own beloved daughter to Vishrava in marriage. And they had a most pious child. His name was Kubera. And he performed tapasya. In those days, this is the Treta Yuga, tapasya was a very important part of one's spiritual foundation in life. Or even if one wasn't spiritual, one would perform tapasya to get potency and abilities to succeed in life. So Kuvera, he pleased Lord Brahma with his austerities. And Lord Brahma gave him a benediction that he could be Lord of a world. And he was so pleased, he gave Kuvera the Pushpaka. Brahma personally gave him this incredible vehicle. If any of you here are proud of your automobile, whether it be a Hindustani Ambassador or a Maruti Suzuki, or if it's a Ford or a Chevrolet or a Toyota or a Honda or a Mercedes or BMW, you may think you have a nice car, but Pushpaka was really a nice car. If you take a long drive from here to Pune, you're just, God, I want to get out, no matter how good your car is. But Pushpaka, you could go to any planet you want. And while you're going there, if you want, you can walk through a forest, you can take bath in a lake full of lotus flowers. You could play, you could do anything you like. You could live in a palace, you could go to sleep on silken beds. And today, with modern technology, you have these devices where they tell you exactly where you're supposed to go. Yes? This voice comes out and says, at the next corner, turn left. And then you have attained your destination. But what kind of technology compared to Pushpaka? Pushpaka, all you do is think of where you want to go, and it will take you there. You don't even have to put your hand on a steering wheel or a brake or an accelerator. No stoplights, no traffic jams. You just think in your mind, I want to go to Bhaktivedanta Manor. And within seconds you're there. And while you're there, if you're an athlete, you could play cricket on the way. If you're a brahmachari, you could have kirtan with 1,000 brahmacharis. If you like to enjoy life, you men, you could dance with 10,000 apsaras on your way to Bhaktivedanta. Pushpaka, very nice. He was given that. And after Brahma left, Vishrava asked Kuvera asked his father Vishrava, I don't have a place to live. He said, you go to Sri Lanka. Vishwakarma has already built it with gold. So this was the children of Vishrava born of the daughter of Bhardraj, a great sage. Sumali had a daughter named Kaikashi. And he was kind of from a Rakshasa race, but he understood in order for it to sustain and be powerful, there needed to be connection, strong connection to a great Brahminical sage. So he sent his daughter to marry, Somali sent his daughter Kaikashi to marry Vishrava. But when she approached him for a child, it was an inauspicious time. You see, in those days, inauspicious and auspicious was very important because people had such a strong intelligence and such strong will that everything had to be very, very conscious. We had to be aware of each moment, and we had the capacity to do so. In Kali Yuga, this auspicious and inauspicious is not so relevant. In Kali Yuga, the benediction, if you chant the holy names of the Lord, everything becomes auspicious. Inauspicious moments become auspicious if you chant God's name. And just to prove that, an eclipse is considered inauspicious. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his grandfather, Nilambar Chakravarti, he told Sachi Mata, his daughter, and Jagannath Mishra, that your child, it's already over a year and he's still not born. He's just staying in your womb. This is a divine child who is waiting for the most auspicious possible moment to appear. A lunar eclipse, that's considered inauspicious. But because it's so inauspicious, everyone, in order to counteract the effects, they very urgently cry out the holy names of the Lord. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead considered this is the most auspicious time, because the holy name makes everything the most auspicious. And Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu appeared as the holy name was being chanted in all directions during the lunar eclipse. In Kali Yuga, Srimad Bhagavatam tells us all the problems of this age: quarrel, hypocrisy. But it also explains that the sages worship Kali Yuga as the best of all the ages. Kalerdosa nidhe rajan asti heka mahan guna kirtanat eva krishnasya mukta sangha param brajet. Because simply by chanting the names of the Lord, one can attain the supreme perfection of liberation, something that was extremely difficult in the past ages. So because people had such mental, physical capacity, they were responsible for everything they did. So if something was done in an inauspicious time, there would be an inauspicious thing happening. So Vishrava told Kaikashi that because you approach me, you'll have children, but they will be tyrants. They will terrorize society. And she was taken back with suffering to think that she's going to have children like that. Is there something we can do? He said, but your youngest child will be the embodiment of virtue and dharma. So her eldest child was Ravana. As soon as he born, he had 10 heads, and there was fire coming out of his mouth, and he was evil and cruel when he was still an infant. Can you imagine that? And the next child, Kumbhakarna, I don't know how she fit him in her womb. He was also terrifying. Then she had a daughter named Suparnika. They were atrocious people. And her youngest child was Vibhisana. They went to all of them under Ravana, the eldest brother's order. They went to Gokarna to perform tapasya. And when you're performing tapasya, you have to be very, very righteous, religious, and dharmic. You have to be very, very pious in your actions. And Ravana, he was fasting, performing some very, very difficult asana and staying in it constantly. In Hatha Yoga asana, among some great teachers, if you can hold an asana for a long period of time, that's considered a great accomplishment. Well, these asuras, they would find the most difficult asanas and stay in them for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. He was hardly eating, and every 1,000 years he would cut off one of his heads and offer it to Lord Brahma. And he did this for 9,000 years until he only had one head left. And he was about to offer it, and Brahma came and said, all right, what do you want? He said, I want to be immortal. Brahma said, I can't give you immortality. That's not within my power. So like Hiranyakashipu, he made conditions that I cannot be killed by any deva, I cannot be killed by any rakshasa, by any naga, by any yaksha, by any gandharva. but he considered it below his integrity to say a human, because he considered human beings to be like straw. It's like one of you saying, give me the boon that I will never be killed by a ant. All your heads, you get them back, and if anyone cuts off your heads or hands, they'll come back. I gave him so many powers. Kumbhakarna, Brahma came to him, said, what benediction do you want? At that point, the Devas had a little istagosti with Brahma. They said, even without benediction, he's conquering the entire universe. He devours everything. If you give him benedictions, everything's finished. So please, consider that. Brahma, by his thoughts, he attracted Saraswati to appear, and she knew exactly what to do. She's the goddess of speech. So Brahma said to Kumbhakarna, what do you want? And Saraswati went right on his tongue and moved it. And caused him to say, I want to go to sleep. So Brahma said, so be it, and then immediately left. And then Saraswati left, and Kumbhakarna was standing there. He had stood on one foot for thousands of years. And during those thousands of years, during the summer season, he would have 4 blazing fires around him under the sun and not move. During the rainy season, he would kneel down on one leg and just sit there as torrents of rains were falling on him, fasting. During the winter season, he would go to the peaks of the Himalayas and submerge himself in ice-cold rivers up to his neck. And he did it all to get a boon, to go to sleep. He felt totally cheated. Thousands of years I did severe austerities, and out of my mouth in my mind I was fixed for all those thousands of years on what benediction I wanted. And I asked to go to sleep and not be disturbed. He understood it was the Devas who tricked him. And Suparnika asked for all kinds of benedictions. She could change her form, so many things. And Vibhisana, he also, under the order of Ravana, he's performed tapasya. Severe tapasya. And when he was asked for a benediction from Brahma, the only benediction he asked was, no matter how many difficulties, impediments, temptations, or fears come in my life, bless me that I will never, in my thoughts, in my words, or in my actions, even slightly deviate from the path of pure Dharma. Let my every thought, my every action, and my every word be righteous and pure in the service of God. Lord Brahma granted that benediction. So be it. So they lived together And Ravana, seeing how his stepbrother Kuvera had such a nice vehicle, the Pushpaka, he was envious, he was competitive. He conquered Kuvera, took his city away, took the Pushpaka away. And Ravana, with the help of Kumbhakarna and Suparnaka, was conquering the universes. His eldest son, Indrajit. Meanwhile, as Ravana was terrorizing everyone, everywhere, conquering demigods, conquering, and he and Kumbhakarna they were not only killing great sages and rishis, they were eating them. Why Vibhisana stayed there in Sri Lanka? And why was he the well-wishing minister of his elder brother Ravana? He was actually totally faithful as far as his duties. It's very inconceivable. The two great epics, Mahabharata and Ramayana, it's interesting. There are several parallels between Vibhisana and Vidura. In the Mahabharata, Vidura was the younger brother of Dhritarashtra, whose son was Duryodhana, who was very much like Indrajit. And even though Dhritarashtra, under the influence of Duryodhana, was persecuting the Pandavas, trying to kill them, cheating them, Vidura was the faithful minister at the side of Dhritarashtra. He was always giving him good advice. He never compromised his advice, but he stayed with him as his minister, faithful, until the point when Duryodhana kicked him out. That's the point when he left. Bhavadvida Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibhu. Yudhisthira Maharaj said about Vidura that you are a holy place personified, because you carry Krishna in your heart with so much love and devotion. Wherever you go, all the holy places are there. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridesha arjuna tishtati. Krishna is in everyone's heart. Everyone is carrying Krishna in their heart, wherever they go. So why are we not all holy places of pilgrimage? Vidura, or the great devotees of the Lord, they carry Krishna in their heart with awareness, with consciousness. In one sense, what it really means is not the physical location in the heart. The heart in this sense really means consciousness. Because Vidura and the great souls, they are always remembering Krishna in their heart with love. Always eager to serve Krishna within their heart, with their body, their mind, their words, and their lives. Therefore, Krishna is manifesting through them. And wherever such a person goes is the holiest of all holy places. But yet Vidura was living in the palace of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. and all the schemes and the plans to murder the Pandavas, to exile the Pandavas, to disgrace the good name of the Pandavas. Vidura never ceased to speak according to pure devotional service. But still, he remained the faithful servant of Ravana, of Dhritarashtra, at his side. As did Bhishma, who was one of the Mahajans. Mahajano yena gata sapanta. We're supposed to follow in the footsteps of the Mahajans. But following in the footsteps of someone who takes the side of envious enemies of the devotees. For this we need acharyas to explain what is the essence of Bhishma that we follow in the footsteps of. What was his real spirit? And Krishna revealed all of that in time. Vidura was telling Dhritarashtra, give the Pandavas what they deserve. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is their best friend. You will be destroyed. Your whole family will be destroyed if you follow the influence of Duryodhana. He's the personification of offense. And when Duryodhana heard that, he spoke to Vidura with such cruel words. And in Ramayana, it's very interesting because the same conflict happened between Indrajit and Vibhisana. Vibhisana was always chastising Indrajit. They were always fighting. And ultimately, Duryodhana banished Vidura, and Dhritarashtra said nothing about it. He supported his son. And Ravana banished Vibhisana. Yes, Vibhisana was always on the path of Dharma. Like a lotus flower in the muddiest possible pond of water. He was pure. Sri Lanka was the muddiest, most sinful place in creation. Yet he was there, worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead with love and devotion, never deviating from Dharma. And although out of love for his brother, out of his love for Ram, out of his love for humanity and all living beings, he was constantly fighting with his brother about Sita. Send her back. And he was speaking with love, with affection toward his brother. He had no malice, he had no hatred. He was just trying to convince his brother to do the right thing. To protect him. And Ravana and Indrajit, they were so outraged. The point when Ravana finally told Vibhisana, I should kill you. If you weren't my brother, I would kill you. Out from here, I reject you. The point that he said that is when Vibhisana severely chastised Indrajit, Ravana's son. It's a good parallel with Duryodhana and Vidura. Ravana could tolerate Vibhisana's radical dharma and his advice until the point when he really, really blasted against Indrajit, his son. He couldn't tolerate it any longer. That was it. Out from here. And at that point, Vibhisana told Ravana, "You're my brother. I respect you and honor as the king of our race. But I cannot be a part of your sin." And at that point, he went to take shelter of Ram. Actually, he had already taken shelter of Ram in his heart of hearts. But what was apparently the worst situation, he saw it as an opportunity to clear all impediments from applying his heart's wish to his life. The worst situation, impediment, is he was being completely hated as an enemy by his older brother, who he dedicated his entire life to try to help. And this is the result. From his heart, he tried to always do what was best for Ravana in the service of Ravana. But because he spoke what Ravana didn't like to hear, he was rejected. What does that mean? His beautiful home, his family, his everything. He had to leave it with nothing. And for Kshatriyas who are living in royalty, this is not an easy thing. But it was a blessing. When Vidura was kicked out of his palace, he considered it a blessing. I've done my duty, now I'm being rejected, it's Krishna's grace. I could go on pilgrimage. For Vibhisana, he tried his best, and instead of being appreciated for his love, he was hated, considered an enemy, and rejected. And now Vibhisana could follow his heart with no restrictions. His heart belonged to Ram from the beginning, and now he could surrender to him. His body, mind, words, everything, and be on Ram's side. But Krishna, he orchestrates his Leela in a very instructive way. Devotion is not so easy. Here was Vibhisana. He was hated as an enemy. They threatened to kill him if he wasn't a brother. The most horrible, harsh words by Ravana and the entire dynasty of Rakshasas, which was his own family. Then when he came to take shelter of Ram, Sugriva and the monkeys treated him even worse. It's not that there was immediately a festival. Vibhisana said, I want to take shelter of Ram. He said that to Sugriva. And Sugriva went to Ram with Jambavan and others and said, we cannot trust him. We should kill him. He's a Rakshasa. He's the brother of Ravana who stole Sita. He's a minister for all these years. How could we trust him? Just because he had an argument with his brother, some temporary, problem in their relationship. But this man is powerful. He's a Rakshasa. So their advice to Ram was either kill him or tie him up and put him in prison or send him back, but he must be rejected. Sugriva said it. Angada said it. Jambavan, they were all speaking those ways. Nobody trusted him. It's not so easy being a devotee. Because he was a devotee, he was kicked out of his home, rejected by his race. Then he comes to Ram's temple and he's kicked out. And ultimately, he's being blasphemed so bad by the devotees. Ram asked Hanuman, "What do you think?" Hanumanji said, "I saw his face and I heard his words. I see no duplicity in him. He is completely honest. We should immediately accept him as part of our family and love him as a brother." And Ram took sides with Hanuman. And that angered, even not angered exactly, but incited such a reaction from Sugriva and the other leaders. Can't do this. We will, if he's inside, he'll know all our secrets, he'll know everything. And when things come to a certain point, family relations are very, very deep. He's going to turn against us and side with Ravana, his brother. We must tie him up and put him in prison. Ram said, "You don't have to fear anything. I will keep him tied up in the prison of my heart." If anyone, even one time, says, "My Lord, I take shelter of yours, I am yours," then I will give that person all protection. I will give that person all encouragement forever. I take this solemn vow before all of you. Anyone, even if Ravana came to me today to take shelter, I would accept him as my own and protect him, inspire him for all time to come. Bring Vibhishan to me. And when Vibhishan came before Ram and prostrated his body at the feet of Ram, Ram knows the heart. He wasn't just bowing down. When you bow down before the deity, when you bow down before the Srila Prabhupada's Murti, to a Vaishnava, you should know that that act of bowing is meant to be an expression of what is in our heart. It's not just a ritual. On the path of bhakti, everything we do is an expression of our heart. That is what is meant to be. When we're offering arti, we're not just waving some incense and fire around the deity. We're offering our hearts. It's a meditation. It's a meditation of offering our love through the expression of these articles for arti.